Hello, everyone, and welcome to beautiful Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, although you can't see anything because this is an audio podcast, as you're probably pretty aware because you're listening to this and not watching it. Anyways, it's a beautiful blue day. It is fall time, which means here in Southern Ontario, we actually have some pretty nice fall colors. It's always like a fun struggle to actually predict when fall colors actually happen because it's this plus or minus 2 week window. I would say it's like similar to cherry blossom season in Japan, that as soon as it happens, everything gets really busy. But in the meantime, it's very hard for me to schedule like a Sunday and put 5 shoots on it when it could not be fall colors at all. And I want to deliver that to my clients, but unfortunately, I don't know. I also have a schedule to protect and maintain. I would say that maybe this is the largest takeaway, that if I can give you one takeaway from all of photography and all of photography education, anything that you can learn online, anything that you could read in a book, I would say to do everything optimized for life freedom. So time freedom is, I believe, at least what I'm after, and hopefully that's what you're after as well. And what I mean by that is that means not taking, once you're in a position, obviously in the beginning stages, you have to be taking pretty much anything that offers to pay you money. And very shortly after that, as soon as you're able to support yourself, or if you're working another job to kind of supplement your photography career, maybe you can do this right now. But it's very much to pick the jobs and to choose the direction of your portfolio and your career. I think that is the most important thing to do in photography, because so many friends of mine have gone down the path of that they'll select, I don't know, that they'll just get stuck in doing a genre of photography that they're pretty good at, but brings them no life happiness, unfortunately. So they are going to kind of continue down that path because there is a paycheck, and it's a consistent paycheck. And one of the human needs, I guess, is that we need consistency. And but beyond that, we also need variety as well, which is something that I guess I would say that is one of my bigger needs as a human, that I want to know for sure that I am able to support myself, that I can pay my rent, that my dog can get food. But beyond that, I want a lot of variation, because I get very, I guess, not necessarily incredibly bored, but I get a little bit bored just doing photography week after week. That, as you can imagine, if you are shooting a lot of volume for weddings, that by shooting like every single Saturday, so my volume is about 70 weddings per year, which is pretty crazy. And I think it's actually 72 this year. I just counted a couple of days ago. And it is a very, very easy thing to just keep doing the same thing every single week. And another thing that I'll be talking about later in the podcast is kind of how I actually design my life freedom, I guess. And that has a big key part on me actually photographing the same venues over and over again. And that might sound like the absolute worst thing that you could ever do in life for your, I guess, creative energy and your mental energy. But I find that is something that helps me really just, one, multiply how efficient I am, both on site with photography as well as post-production. And also I guess the biggest thing that does is shooting the same venues over and over again, is that it really does make me know that I can walk into a day and with no stress deliver the best possible work that I can. And by going to another venue or like a banquet hall or something, every now and then you get kind of stuck into a position that you can't create your best work. And that really does, the stress of that potentially happening really does actually stress me out quite a lot. And it's not just like on the day, that's like the 2 months leading up to the stressful time. So the more that I can minimize that, the more that I can minimize venues that I know that are going to cause me some issues. Winter weddings also kind of cause me the same issues as well, that when I am going into a winter season and I have like 15 weddings booked and it's already cold and it's already snowy and people don't want to go outside, or if it's like minus 30 or something just like absolutely crazy outside, I really do get stressed out by that because I know that my work is going to be a lot different. I know that my couples are totally cool and that they selected their wedding in the winter because they want to have a wedding in the winter. So I do my best that I can to incorporate all of those elements, obviously, but it's a little bit stressful for me, and I feel a little bit sad, and it does hurt my motivation that I know that I'm going to go in, that I'm not going to do like a portfolio, like I'm not going to do a portfolio wedding that I'm going to be incredibly proud of, that I'm going to do something that is going to exceed the couple's expectations. But I know that there's kind of a limit to how far I can go with that, which is a little bit, I guess, of an unfortunate reality. So today, engagement sessions out here, Niagara-on-the-Lake. My engagement sessions, I would say 3 years ago, I did one for pretty much every single couple. It was very, very rare if a couple did not choose an engagement session whenever they booked the package, or whenever they were, even if they bought a package with no engagement session, usually they would do what they could to like either buy a gift certificate to get a shoot, or just add a shoot on after all. And that was just normal, that I don't know, it just happened. And I guess the other thing was that when that era was kind of happening, that it was just expected, that it was kind of the conditioning of everyone, that you needed to have an engagement shoot to get comfortable with your photographer, to get comfortable in front of the camera. And I've found that the more I'm selecting my couples with care and really just selecting, as strange as it is, I'm like, every single wedding that I shoot, I feel like I'm photographing Lindsay, my wife, and I's wedding. I feel like every couple that I have is almost an exact mirror of who we are. And once you start doing weddings for those style of couples that are that well connected to you, it is so easy, especially as somebody who's really introverted. And it does give me a lot of anxiety to like, if I know that somebody is like, that they were the popular kids in high school, and I'm walking into like that popularity crowd that everybody is just completely extroverted and like really high energy. If I know that I'm walking into that scene, it really does give me a lot of anxiety. And I find that if I know that I'm walking into essentially like our wedding or our friends, it's very easy for me to embed myself into that wedding day for one day, and just like immediately as soon as I show up, that I just feel like I just have a great rapport with everybody instantly. And I think that is how I create my best work. So when a venue that I'm familiar with comes together with a couple that I'm just like inherently familiar with, I think that is where I do my absolute best work. Either that or on like a mountaintop in Banff National Park, because I feel like it's hard to take bad photos in a situation like that. But as far as full wedding galleries go, I think that I do the best in conditions like that. So because of that, I also think that like when Lindsay and I were thinking about getting married, we didn't really want an engagement session around our local area. So I find that a lot of my couples are very much the same, that they'll get engaged in Italy or somewhere, and they will do an engagement session out there with a photographer, or they'll have the actual like literal engagement photograph. And then they'll do like that 10-minute session after, when all the bride wants to do, or all the groom wants to do, is call everybody that they know. But instead they have to go and do this photo session. Also, pro tip, if you are ever hired to do a proposal, I would maybe build in like a little gap there after the actual proposal and before you want to do a photo session. Just logistically, it seemed like it should have been that if they get engaged, then it's like, hey, let's go do some pictures. It's quite a mental shift, I guess. It's like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Taylor, and I'll be taking your picture now. And I know you just got engaged, and I know that all you want to do is you want to call like your mom and your sister and like your best friends, but we're gonna do these photos first, and please be 100% present. It just doesn't really work like that. There's just too much going on. So if you are hired for proposal, maybe build in like a 2-hour gap or something before you actually do a photo session. But most of my couples, they're doing engagement sessions out in the world somewhere. And I think that Lindsay and I are the same way, that if we're traveling somewhere, or if we are even with like in a city of a photographer that we really, really love, we would way rather kind of set up a shoot around that rather than just doing something locally in town because we can. I know there is value in it, especially like if your local hometown is the place that you love the most. Maybe it is a thing that you would still want to do, but most of my couples, I would say, under 50% this year. I would say that I'm photographing maybe 40% of my couples engagement sessions, and that means that either they didn't have one at all or they did one of these somewhere far away from home. Yeah, it's very strange this year. So I don't know if that is a trend that will continue, but that is my observations of this year. And today, all the gear that I have with me, I have a backup D750 with a 45 millimeter Tamron 1.8, but my main lens is the Tamron 85 1.8 on a Nikon D850, and that is pretty much all I shoot with. I don't bring a camera bag usually. I leave my backup in the trunk, and I just go out with the 85 millimeter lens. I find that I'm the most comfortable at that distance, both because of the introverted nature of my life, and also I really do like the separation and the depth of field that it gives as well. I think that that is something that is, I don't know, I'm not going to say that like depth of field is my style, but I think that when people come to me for wedding photos, they do want those images shot at 1.8, which is very funny. I don't think that anyone would verbalize that, but I think that if I showed them like 15 images side by side, that they would always select the ones shot at like f1.8 or 1.2 or 2.0 rather. And what I guess I like to do best is, or at least how I feel that my couples feel the most comfortable, is just like walking around. So we just pick a spot. Today we picked Niagara-on-the-Lake. I'm 35% familiar with my surroundings, but everything looks pretty nice around. And we just kind of pick a spot to start. We find some shade and we go for a walk. I would say more important than the location is lighting. So if you can schedule your engagement sessions at like, I don't know, 5:30 this time of year, about like, I would say 2 hours before sunset is the most ideal. Obviously more variables at play. If you're in the mountains and you like last light is at like 2 hours before sunset, then maybe do an hour before that. But I think by doing that 2 hour before sunset window, it gives you enough to get you into a nice golden hour, but also builds in the buffer that if it happens to be cloudy, that you're not going to be completely in darkness by like an hour before sunset, which has happened to me before. And also this time of year, like be aware that sunset happens a lot faster if you're in the northern hemisphere, because it creeps up on me and I'll be like, oh yeah, like let's meet for 6:30, and then sunset is like 6:40. So that is my advice to you. And also I think for engagement sessions in general, that the simpler you can keep everything, the better. So I have my camera, I have my D850 with my 85 millimeter lens. I'm not going to be changing lenses. I'm not going to be doing like multiple variations of different lenses in every scene. It's that I'm just going to zoom with my feet. So I'm going to get that close shot. I'm going to get maybe a roughly medium shot, and I'm going to get that wide shot all with the 85. And I think that by doing that, it really does create like a cohesive gallery of images. What I don't usually strive for in an engagement session is like that one like super crazy like dynamic, super dramatic wide shot with like the beautiful sky where everything's like all toned perfectly. I would rather have a lot of good images that all kind of fit together well, and those good images that fit together well are usually just the people being happy. And I find that the more you can move around, so today we'll go for a walk, we'll probably not stand at any specific location for longer than like 15 seconds. I would say if we're on like a sidewalk tile, not moving for more than 15 seconds, that is incredibly rare for me. If you're more interested in seeing kind of like how I actually shoot, if you haven't yet, there are lots of videos on YouTube. Just search Taylor Jackson photo and maybe a full wedding, and you'll actually be like a GoPro on top of my camera for the full wedding day, so you can see like settings and you can see everything that I do, and then I do a voiceover so that I can actually, because it's a little bit weird to voiceover at a live wedding that's actually a real event. I will be at some point, I don't know if this will probably be a Patreon thing. I will be creating a few videos that will be actually that I'm going to have a bride and groom come in, and we're actually going to do a full kind of getting ready to reception session. And I'm going to be able to actually talk over that, because it won't be weird, because they know that they're hired to be assistant or props or models, I guess, in not props, that's rude, in this future course. But yeah, so that I think pieces of that will end up on YouTube and pieces of it will end up in Patreon. The business sections always go on Patreon, so I've kind of locked all that down. But in there's like my contract and pricing and lots and lots of other things. I think there's also 5 behind the scenes weddings, so that's the only time I've kind of broken that rule. But other than that, I am pretty much just going to be continuing to create content. So thank you for listening to today's podcast. This is, again, my personal and selfish struggle to get better at one take conveying my thoughts. And I think it's actually helpful. So I think like the main thing for me is that I need some sort of muscle memory or some sort of brain memory, I guess. And if I can get like some good momentum doing something, I think that is something that continues forward, and that you don't have to exercise it as much. So if you are somebody that struggles like I did, like in front of a camera, I was super terrified and very uncomfortable and very much not myself and by no means authentic in earlier videos. I'm talking like 5 or 8 or 10 years ago. I just could not be myself. That as soon as the camera was on me, I had this weird persona, and it wasn't me. I could convey some information, and I could make a decent promo video because I would write it before. But if you put a camera on me and ask me some questions, there is like 0% chance that I would be able to give like a coherent answer, especially in something that was smaller, that wasn't just me rambling for like 5 minutes and having to stop and start. So this podcast is my exploration of that. If you have any questions for me as far as photography goes, business goes, or travel goes, or really anything else that you'd want to ask, feel free to head over to patreon.com/Taylor Jackson, and there is a link in the top section there that will bring you to the post to ask questions. I'm happy to answer anything. As I kind of said, all of my specific business content usually does go on Patreon, but I'm happy to try my best at answering anything that kind of falls outside the bounds of that. I do want to keep something special locked up there for everybody that supports. So that is all for today. I am Taylor Jackson, and thank you for listening to episode 2 of the podcast out here in sunny fall Niagara on the Lake. See you next time.